Day 18 of the Diddy trial. Welcome to Behind the Bar, everybody. Derek, today was all about hush money payments. This $100,000 that Diddy paid to keep the Cassie video from ever seeing the light of day.
This was an incredible day of testimony, really bombshell stuff. A man named Eddie Garcia, who's a former hotel security officer for the Intercontinental Hotel, which is the site of the infamous Cassie beating video from March of 2016, discussed what went down in the wake of seeing that video as a security officer. And it was incredible. So he's on the stand, and what he described was seeing this video and recognizing that, wow, that's Diddy and Cassie. And getting a phone call from a woman named Christina Cororm. Christina Cororm is referred to as KK a lot in the trial. She is Diddy's chief of staff.
And she has been named countless times, dozens of times, including named as a defendant in many civil cases. Those that what is it, 50-some civil cases
Yes.
that have been brought by Tony Busby mostly against Diddy. The civil cases that are lurking everywhere and are going to be, presumably go to trial long after the criminal case is over. Christina Cororm has been named as a defendant in many of these for basically aiding and abetting Diddy's illegal activity.
That's right. The prosecutors have built Diddy into this criminal mastermind. That's the center of the RICO case, but all criminal enterprises have lieutenants. And it sounds like they're setting up Christina Cororm as one of these lieutenants who fixed things for Diddy, essentially, when things would go wrong. She had a formal position. She was sort of the chief of staff of Combs Global Enterprises. But in this instance, she called and said she spoke with Eddie. Eddie said he got on the phone with her, described that he had this video, and she said, this is going to be very damaging to my client. I need this to go away. He said, I can't do that for you. The video exists. I understand it would be damaging to your client, but I'm going to have to run this up the food chain. He goes to his supervisor, who is a man named Bill Medrano. And Bill Medrano says, okay, I'll make it go away, according to Eddie's testimony, for $50,000. He says, in exchange for that $50,000, I will wipe it off our servers and give you a flash drive. Eddie says ultimately what Diddy agreed to pay was $100,000 because Eddie needed his cut, and another man named Henry Elias also got $20,000. So here's the breakdown. $100,000, according to Eddie, was handed to him in a brown paper bag, really the stuff of mafia legend.
The stuff of RICO actions, too.
The stuff of RICO actions as well. $50K went to Bill Medrano, $30K went to Eddie. He says he bought a car in cash with the money, and $20,000 went to Henry Elias. This was the hush money payment. He says they were handed a flash drive to Diddy, and they got the deal done. Of course, this all came apart, and everyone's wondering, well, why do we see the video if they hid it? There's a couple ways, right, Jason?
Well, we know there's a couple ways it could have happened. We don't
know though
precisely how it is that this video ended up in prosecutors' hands. First, it could have been these guys. They may have said that they were going to wipe the drive, and they didn't wipe the drive. So they handed a copy, but they kept one for themselves. That's possible.
It's entirely possible. This is not an honorable deal. Sometimes people say, oh, you need this thing buried. You'll pay me again in the future if I keep a copy, so I'll come and double dip. Classic.
Second, we know that the feds raided Diddy's house, and there were stories coming out of it that they found a treasure trove of videos, including maybe some of the freak-offs, the videos involving Cassie and Diddy and other escorts. And it could have been that Diddy kept a copy. Remember, he bought this thing for $100,000. It could have been that he kept the copy and that the feds seized it in the raid of his house.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Remember, this video comes out in 2024 after those raids. So the raids occur and the video is then leaked to CNN in some way. CNN is not going to give up their source of how they got this, but it does look like the video was recorded off of a monitor. The video that was shown to the world doesn't look like the raw footage of what the security cameras actually captured.
And CNN had less than the full video. Once the official, we'll call it official, I don't know where it came from, but the official version leaked, or it came out in the trial, there were videos from 3 different cameras within the Intercontinental. It was much more sort of the professional video or surveillance video that was taken, as opposed to something that was shot off of a screen and then handed to CNN.
Now, a bit of this is academic. There's a couple points to note. The man seen on the video, if you look at the video of the beating, there's a man who comes out of an elevator who is a security official. Man's name.
This guy was called by Cassie, right? From the elevator bank. So she goes out to kind of get away from Diddy. Apparently, she picks up a phone, one of those house phones, and calls down wanting assistance.
Right.
This is the guy who comes up to the floor, and we see him.
And you see him. This man's name is Israel Flores. He is actually now an LAPD officer. And at the time, according to Eddie Garcia's testimony, he was unwilling to take money. They didn't think this guy would participate in the hush money transaction, and probably for good reason. He wanted to be a cop. And so he is not involved in this monetary transaction. The other three men are. But what's interesting is a couple things coming out that legally we want to discuss. One, you're going to hear this payment described as bribery. It's just incorrect. Bribery is a payment to a public official, a payment to a cop, a payment to a governor, a mayor, to sort of get them to work towards a criminal end. This was payment to hotel security officials from a private citizen. These kind of hush money payments are common and legal most of the time.
I just want to, we dealt with this in our very first couple of episodes of this podcast. And a lot of people were saying, why isn't he being prosecuted for the payments to the hotel officials? It was when Israel Flores testified, actually, and we heard about this effort to keep it quiet. It is 100% totally and completely legal to pay somebody to conceal a tape, conceal evidence, destroy evidence, whatever it might be, provided that the person is not a
subject of a criminal investigation.
Well, it is not an officer, is not a judge, a member of a jury, a police officer, etc., or at the time that the destruction happens, they're the subject of a criminal investigation.
Because there you get obstruction of justice.
Right.
If there's an ongoing investigation about this incident and you destroy evidence, you are committing a crime, and that crime is obstruction of justice.
But at the time, there was no pending investigation. Obviously, the hotel security guards are not public officials. They're not peace officers. There was nothing illegal about this payment that Diddy made.
So why is this relevant to this case? Well, the big reason is RICO.
Yeah.
He has been charged with running a criminal enterprise, and most of the things he's alleged to have done are crimes within themselves. In order to run the criminal enterprise, they've said he blew up Kid Cudi's car. That would be arson. They say he strong-arm tactics with various employees. Obviously, physical violence. Lots of testimony about that.
Cassie by keeping her to the relationship by threatening her to disclose the videos to third parties.
Right.
On and on.
What this shows is his state of mind.
Right.
This
So
really
this
shows a
is
criminal
not,
state of mind.
As we said, this is not in and of itself a criminal act, paying money to conceal this video, but it does show his state of mind that he knew what he had done was wrong. He wanted to conceal it from the world, and that when it's another building block on top of this otherwise very illegal criminal activity, all goes to show that maybe you have a criminal enterprise.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be lost on the jury, because part of what we'd heard about Diddy is that he was in the throes of drug addiction at this point in time and maybe had a blackout episode that he was unaware of. Now, if you learn that in the aftermath of this beating video, which was horrific, but if part of his defense was to be, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, you certainly knew what you were covering up. And that's the big issue for Diddy. This is absolutely devastating testimony, regardless of whether it's legal to enter into non-disclosure agreements and so forth. The way this hits the jury, that he handed over $100,000 in cash to silence this video from ever coming out, is devastating. I'm not sure how you recover.
So prosecutors have all these various elements of the crimes they have to hit, and they're providing different types of evidence. They're going to argue in cross-examination, meet these various elements. But there's also just a gross factor for the jury. Like, do they want to punish this man? And part of what the prosecution is trying to do is just give more and more evidence, technically legal, technically illegal, to show that he was this monster they're trying to portray. And one of those things might be that he's going so far as to pay $100,000 to keep something quiet.
Yeah, I've gotten this question of, are Diddy's lawyers doing a good job? I think they are, but they have a very bad case.
Yes.
And so I don't want to lay the blame at their style of cross-examination with certain witnesses. Some people have criticized, did they go too hard against Mia? Did they go too hard against Cassie? Some of that could have blowback, and you could second-guess some of the tactics. But these are top-flight attorneys. These are very good at defense attorneys. He's paying a mint to this team, this dream team that he's assembled. Yeah. But you can only play the cards you're dealt, and they are dealt a very difficult hand with the litany of things that prosecutors have brought in this case.
I think we sometimes have a tendency to overstate the importance of lawyers.
Yes.
Entire things. Facts win and lose cases. Lawyers can lose cases. They can very rarely win cases. I mean, you're playing within the rules and the margins when you're an attorney. You have the facts and you are stuck with them. And so when they get up there and they're asking their client, people are asking these witnesses about Diddy's illegal activities, all the great lawyering in the world is not going to stop the jury from hearing what these people say.
That's right. So very rough day for Diddy. This testimony, I think, is going to be a real critical piece of evidence that the jury will go back into that room. And when they're looking across all of this stuff, it's just going to be hard to make sense of a $100,000 payment to silence this video.
So Nelda has written in a really good question. Why is no one pointing out the fact that the hotel staff mentioned the price they wanted? Yes, he hinted at the payout, but they gave the price. I mean, I guess, and the jury will hear that, but is it really relevant? He's the one that ended up writing the check, or in this case, having someone deliver the cash.
That's right. Don't forget, Christina called up and said, I know this called Eddie Garcia,
Cororm, right?
Christina Cororm, who is Diddy's agent, a lieutenant of some sort, and said, I know you have a video that's going to be very damaging to my client. Now, was the first price raised by them? Perhaps, but now you're in the stage of a negotiation, and really it was Diddy who needed something out of those people. The fact that they set a price is a bad look. I think them participating in a hush money transaction isn't a great look for these three individuals, but really, it's Diddy who needed something.
Yeah. Daniel O'Neill says, was the NDA on bad boy letterhead RICO? I think, Daniel, if I'm reading you right, you're saying, like, how are you actually proving that this was intentional NDA, and how does this become RICO? I mean, look, witnesses give testimony, and we had the testimony from the security guards that Christina Cororm kind of like put a little bit of pressure on them to sell this. They agreed to it. Obviously, they wanted to. They wanted the cash.
And when you say bad boy letterhead, she had a job at Bad Boy Global. Yeah,
it wasn't
Combs Enterprises.
The fact that it wasn't written down as with contracts, right? People always say that a written contract is more powerful than an oral contract. It's not.
Contract's
it's easier to prove. But so here we don't have the proof of something written down. So to that point, maybe the jury doesn't buy it, but it's irrelevant from a strictly legal point of view, whether it was written or oral. What matters is whether the jury believes that it's true.
Now, it's also, I do, some of this point is well taken in that this was $100,000 in cash. You have a man testifying about it. You don't have wire receipts. You don't have any of that hard, tangible evidence, but that's by design of a deal of this sort. Diddy didn't want to have a paper trail, if you believe Eddie, of having wired $100,000 to the Intercontinental Hotel staff like this. So they do it in paper. Maybe he wants to contest that it ever happened. I doubt he's going to go in that direction. There's three people who received tens of thousands of dollars. Do you think he'll do that?
No, I can't believe that would happen, right?
It's just hard to believe.
Yeah. All right. Branson, we got a question here, and I do not understand it. Why would Diddy call him after all these years not communicating with him until this day? He also stated he didn't respond right away because he was on the flight to Charlotte. Do you have any idea what Branson
is? That a reference to Eddie Garcia? We don't know. This is the question. I do think it raises one.
So we rely on producer Branson to pull out comments that we can then read to you to give an insight into what people are thinking and try to answer them. And once in a while, Branson brings this out, and I'm completely confused as to what it is.
I'm a bit flummoxed as well. Although one interesting point that it reminded me of.
Second day as the head producer for this podcast. I don't
Tony,
know.
You're going in the captain's chair next. So one thing it did remind me of, though, is these guys, at least Eddie, according to Eddie on the stand, said when the video came out on CNN, he was taken aback. And he had a little side thread with some of the people who accepted this hush money. And he said they noticed it first coming out then, indicating that they didn't leak it, that they were surprised to see that this came out after entering into this transaction. So if that gives any insight, I don't know.
It would have been a big deal. If you remember back just time of yore when Tiger Woods paid Rachel Yucatel, I believe, $10 million to keep his history of basically having sex with her and all the other stuff that he had done quiet. And then she went out and started talking about it and leaking the information. And he sued her and got a huge chunk of that money back. I think like 80% of that money back. So I'm sure if you're these three guys who have gotten these hush money payments and all of a sudden it leaks, you're like, oh my God, who talked? And is Diddy going to come after it?
Can you imagine Diddy suing these three guys for his $100K? given the millions of problems he has if he files a small civil suit? Just to recover his hush money?
Each one of them? Yeah.
That would be something. All right, that'll do it for us today. We'll see you guys tomorrow.